Hey everyone, thank you for joining in with us for a Flutter Singapore event. Hi German.
Hello, Shafraz.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining in with us for a Flutter Singapore event. Hi German. And thank you for joining in with us.
Oh, looks like we had a problem. Now everything is okay. Sorry for that. I was happy to hear my name multiple times.
Awesome. So German, this is the which edition? How many times have we run a Flutter Singapore event?
So it's our third meetup this year, but today we have our special edition. So it's a March. That is why we have speakers, as usual, around the world, but it's women who work closely with Flutter. And today we have speakers from Australia, India, Pakistan, also Bermuda. So just really from everywhere.
Oh wow, that's pretty exciting and great to have all our speakers joining with us from all over the world. And please do let us know from where you're joining in as well in the live chat so we can interact and also see what you have as questions as well for the speakers that you have today. So German, I think without taking much time, I would probably give an introduction to developer space as well. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Go on.
Awesome. Thanks, German. Hi everyone. I'm from developer relations team at Google here in Singapore, and this is actually an event in as a part of International Women's is our Flutter Singapore community here in Singapore, and developer space is actually helping us out to host this event virtually. But if you have been, you would know Google Developer Space is a physical space. But in order to support uh, activities which are happening online by the communities, they have taken steps to host activities online as well. So Developer Space regularly hosts events online with developers and startups and communities. The Google Developer Space is a platform for developers and startups around the region to learn and connect with one another. So I'm really excited about this event today. And I would love to hand back over to German for the rest of the proceedings.
Yeah, thanks, Shafraz. I also want to thank personally you. I believe we met first time a few years ago when we only started our Flutter meetups. At that time, the world was completely different, and actually we had luxury to be in physical Google Dev Space. So thanks for that. And let's start. Today we have three very interesting presentations. And I invite our first guest. It's Suesi. Hello, sorry, Shafraz. So now I have our speaker. Yeah. Hi, Suesi.
Hi. Hello.
Susie is our guest from Australia, and actually she's the second time joining us, and first time was around a year ago. At that time, unfortunately, I wasn't there, so today I'm really happy to host by myself. What you're going to talk about?
I'm going to introduce some cool plugins for Flutter developer who are using Android Studio.
Okay, then I wouldn't take much of your time. Let's start. Good luck.
Okay, sure. Okay. Hi everyone. Let me introduce myself. I'm Suesi Tran and I'm from Vietnam, currently sitting in Australia to do this talk. Today I'm going to introduce you some cool plugin in Android Studio that is very useful for Flutter dev, Flutter developers like me. So we will have to start with some questions like why we have to use plugins and where do we find plugins and what plugins are useful for Flutter developer like us. I will do some demo as well. So if you have any question, you can wait until the end of the presentation to ask me, or you can just type in the live chat, then I will answer at the end of the presentation. So first thing first, why do we use plugins? As you know, Android Studio is an IDE for mainly at first for Android developer. The name it says itself, but then as the requirement expand and so plugin is introduced to add more additional features into Android Studio. So for example, Android Studio at first it only provide an editor for Java. Right now it has Kotlin embedded in using plugin and with Grader plugin as well. So for Flutter developer who use Android Studio, we also have to use Flutter plugin and also that plugin. That is the basic plugin that we will need for Flutter developer. And there are some other plugin as well that they will actually help us to increase productivity by saving us time on development, and it's also quite convenient, and it can increase your time, your productivity by 30% just by saving little time here and there. So where do you find plugins? Well, in Android Studio, you can go to Android Studio Preference plugin and click on the Marketplace. In there, for Flutter developers, you can just use the keyword Flutter, then just to do a filter, and all the Flutter related plugins will be listed. So here is the screenshot of how it should look like. When there are more plugins, you will see more of the example over here. So what plugins are useful? Number one is that think of what you need. For example, Flutter developer will need to use Flutter. And so because of that, Flutter and the language plugin will be most critical for Flutter developer. But today I'm not going to introduce that too. I'm going to introduce those plugins that will add on additional features to Flutter development. So here are what I suggest. I have 5 plugins that I'm currently using, and I really strongly suggest them because they are really, really useful, really helpful to me. Number one is the Flutter Internationalization plugin. This plugin, I already had a talk last year about this, and it's really very useful, especially if you want to provide your application with multiple language. Then this is what I call go-to plugin. The second one is the Flutter Dev version check. I found this out after the Flutter 2.0 announcement just earlier this month. And because at that time I did a thorough check on my version on the dependencies version in my app, and it was really time consuming. It took me 1 full day just to check all the versions dependencies. So this version check really saves time on that. I did not use it that day, but I used it on some other project, and it reduced the time by half the time just to do the version update. Third one is the Flutter Asset Auto Completion. So if you use asset in your Flutter project, you know that you need to remember exact the path of your asset in the asset folder. And most of the time you will have to copy and paste it from the pubspec.yaml and go to the place where you want to use. With this Flutter Asset Auto Completion, you don't need to go back to pubspec.yaml. You just start the asset, and then the pop-up will be displayed with all the thumbnail of your asset. So if you have an image in there, the thumbnail of the image will be shown. It's very convenient. The fourth one is clean architecture for Flutter. Right now I don't use it anymore, but I used to use it when I was still using clean architecture. Excuse me. So if you're using clean architecture, especially if you're using the full hierarchy of the clean architecture structure, then this will save you time every time you need to generate new features, new directory structure for your clean architecture feature. And the fifth one I use very frequently, the widget generator. This one will help you to generate the boilerplate for stateful and stateless widget. So you really, it just 2 click, and you don't really need to write the full boilerplate anymore. Everything will be generated for you, and then you can just start typing your build method just to have your widget on. So now I'm going to show a live demo on all of these plugins. Here's my project to show the demo, and I already add some assets in here just to show you how the access auto completion look like. Okay, so let's start with Flutter internationalization. You can find the Flutter internationalization under Tools, Flutter internationalization. And the first step, you initialize the project. After you initialize the project, you can see that these I10N and the generated folder are generated. And if you check the generated file, the class name is S. Okay, so for now, if you want to change the class name for the generated file, go to pubspec.yaml under Flutter internationalization, change the class name to, let's say, strings, and run the pubget. Now the class name is changed to string. So you can just go to your material app and update the localization delegate to be strings.delegate. So you just add this string.delegate here. That's done. So now you can start using this string.off context, and you have your localization set up ready, and you can start adding your string over here. So let's say we add a hello in English to be hello there. Right. When you save it, you will notice that under this generated file, the hello is generated. So when you want to add another language, you go to this Flutter internationalization, add locale. Okay. To know more detail on this plugin, is very interesting plugin. You can check out my talk from last year. There's one thing new is that this internationalization is now integrated with Localizely. So Localizely is an online version for translation team to work together. To know more on this, you go to localizely.com to check it out. It will be quite costly. You will need to pay for that. Otherwise, you can use Abbas. To know more about Abbas, you can check from from Flutter Engage Extended from Melbourne. We had a brief talk about it as well. Okay, the second plugin is the Flutter pub version check. So you know when you add any new dependencies, there's a version over here. So let's say if I want to add the map, and the version right now, I just simply add the version 010. So you see this light bulb over here. When you click on the light bulb, that normally it show you only the pubget and suggest you to run the pubget. But after you install Flutter pub version check, you will have this new menu item. It will tell you that you need to update the dependencies because the version 1.0 is different from the latest version. So this pop-up menu over here is from the plugin, the Flutter pub version check plugin. It will tell you that there's a latest version. You can just update it. So when you click on update dependencies, it updates immediately for you. Convenient. So I don't need to go to the pub.dev just to find out the latest version anymore. Okay. The third one is the auto asset generation. So I have a few assets over here, but in order to show this asset generation, I will show you first the widget generator. Okay. So right now I'm going to add a new widget file, a new .dat file named my cute widget. So in this cute widget, I'm going to generate stateful or stateless. Let it be the stateful widget. Call my cute widget. There. 2 clicks and just the widget name, the full widget is generated. So with this, just be assured to implement the build method, because otherwise you will have a crash. Okay, so in this build, instead of returning now, I'm just going to return an image asset. And this image asset, there, I just start typing the word assets, and you see that all my assets are listed with image, thumbnail image of the asset itself. So for now, is let's say I select the Learn Beginner Dash over here. And so that's done. My widget is generated, and the asset is also auto-completed. I don't have to do anything else. Okay. Now I can show you how the clean architecture for Flutter look like. I just click on New and then Clean Generator and click on it. And I name my feature. So let's say the feature is Simplify Features. Okay, let's name it Simplify. Over here, the whole architecture, clean architecture is generated. We have the presentation, domain, and data. Inside the presentation, we have the widget and pages and manager. And inside domain, we have use cases, repository, and entities. Entities is, of course, is for displayable purpose. And then in the data, we have repository, models, and data source. It's purpose. This is 100% follow the clean architecture by Uncle Bob. Yeah, by Uncle Bob. So if you really follow the full architecture, you will find this very useful. Imagine you create all of this. Even if you have one single bash script just to run it, it will take you 1 second to tap to go to the terminal and run the script. So this one is quite convenient, in my opinion. Okay. So that is the end of the demo. If you have any question, you can ask in the live chat. Any question?
Thanks, Susie. While we're waiting for questions, I have a few mine. First, why do you use IntelliJ and not Visual Studio Code?
Oh, IntelliJ is a base of Android Studio. So whatever plugin is currently available on Android Studio are mostly available on IntelliJ as well.
So you prefer to use Android Studio?
Yes, that's right.
What do you think? What plugins are missing today? Like, do you feel that what can be improved? What other plugins might simplify your life?
Oh, there are a lot. For example, currently I'm moving to use MVVM structure, and MVVM does not have the generator like the clean architecture has. So if there's a structure with similar to clean architecture for MVVM, that would be great. And also the clean architecture, even though is really good, right? But on the boilerplate for the implementation is not there. On the DAT file is not there yet. So I really wish to be improved by adding on like the DAT file over there. And also there should be an option to choose which whether you want to use full clean architecture or you want to use the simplified version, or you can even use even select which folder in which of the layer you want, or none, something like that. MVVM as well, that would be great.
Okay, and one more question. We saw at least this auto generator, asset generator, it's standard for Android, and I saw that some iOS developers also use similar project.
Yep.
But for huge one, it actually takes a lot of time to generate, but it was for iOS. Have you ever tried this as a generator for some big project where you have hundreds of assets?
Oh, actually, during the time I searched for the asset auto completion plugin, I come across one asset generator. So it means that whatever images you put into the asset folder, the name must be asset folder of the Flutter. Then once you run that plugin, it will be automatically updated into your pubspec.yaml. That is great. It's really great. But then the thing I don't like about it is that it generates the asset boilerplate file with all the link that point to the asset. And the thing I do not like is because of that boilerplate, it just make additional extra code for the project, which is not really useful. So last time when I used that together with the asset auto completion, I delete that file actually, and then I just use the asset auto completion to refer to the asset directly.
I see. Thanks. Thanks for that. And I would really be happy to see you next time to talk more about plugins, like how to create. Might be very interesting. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the idea.
Yeah. We will move on. Bye. And we have our next speakers. Hello, Simraja. Hello, Tinashe.
Hi. Hey, how are you doing?
Honestly, I'm good. I have already got 2 cups of coffee, and people who know me know that I drink a lot. But Tinashe, like, how you handle it? Because you're from Bermuda, and now it's crazy. I don't know, late or early, depends.
I'd call it late. It's 2:24 my time, but I play games, so I'm usually up at this time anyway. So yeah.
Samiraja and Tinashe are working at company. We had one presentation last time, and today, what do you want to talk about?
So today we're going to be doing a demo and a code walkthrough of one of our apps that Simaraja has worked on.
Then let me share the slides, and we can start. Could you share? Could you add the screen for the stream?
Yep. It's still backstage.
Yeah, thanks. And then let's start.
Awesome. So hi, everyone. It's our absolute pleasure to be presenting to you today. My name is Tinashe, and I am joined by my colleague Samiraja, and we are going to be presenting to you one of our privacy-first open source Flutter apps known as App Persona. So a little bit about us. Like I said, my name is Tinashe. I work at the ad company, and I focus on customer experience. I've been with the ad company since October, and I've just been having a lot of fun since then.
Yes, and I'm Samiraja, so I'm a developer, and I'm into the development of App Persona since 1 year, and you can see what fun that we have created since 1 year in Kavan. Yeah.
Awesome. So as some of you already know, we had the ad company come and speak at one of these meetups last month, and they went into a lot of detail into how the ad platform works, what it's about, and all of that good stuff. So I'm not going to go into that much detail on this slide. I'm just going to give a quick refresher for anybody who wasn't there at that meetup. So the ad platform, it's open source, and that's obviously, it's free to use, nobody owns it. And the app platform consists of what we call the app protocol, which is built on Dart, and then apps, which are built on Flutter. Now, one of the main benefits of developing on the app platform is that you don't have to worry about a backend. So you don't have to deal with database management. You don't have to worry about securing the database, the cost of hosting that database. None of that is an issue when you build on the app protocol. And in addition to that, apps that are built on the app platform are surveillance-free and they're interconnected. So your apps would automatically comply with all the privacy regulations that are currently out there, such as GDPR. And these two things combined result in rapid development cycles. So your apps will be built much quicker and you'll be able to maintain them with a lot of ease. And you can check out more about the app platform on our dev site, on our GitHub, or you can follow us on Twitter. So during the demo, I'm going to be mentioning @signs. So I thought it would be good for me to just give a brief description of what an @sign actually is. So in the simplest terms that we could come up with, your @sign is your digital key on the internet. And what we mean is take it as your unique identifier that kind of holds your data and it allows you to control your data all the time. As anything that you put out there, you can retract it, you can decide who you share it with, how long you share it, and what exactly you're sharing. And we have a number of @sign options that are available to people at the moment. So you could have a free auto-generated @sign, or you could have a semi-custom or fully custom paid @sign. And these are just some examples that are available. And if you stay tuned, we're going to be doing an @sign gift card giveaway later on in this presentation. Okay, so moving on to @persona. So just to give a little bit of context behind why this app was built. So today, when you interact with people, you have a lot of different bits of information that you can share with them. So your phone number, your email, your social media handles, your home address, there's so many things to share with people, which means you have to keep up with these things. You have to, if you change your phone number, you're going to have to tell all these people you've changed your number. It's a lot of work. So what we wanted is that we wanted to create something that allows you to share all of those different things, but from one kind of engine. And that engine would be your @sign, in this case, @Alice. And with that, we then get to the app @persona. Which we're defining as the gateway for your journey on the internet, where you own your data, and this is enabled by the platform. @persona is already available on the Apple App Store and on the Google Play Store, so feel free to try it out after this meetup. And so now I'm just going to go ahead and get into the demo. All right, so on the right, you can see my phone, and on the left, you can see my browser. So I'm going to start off on my phone for this part. So I'm going to open @persona, and here you can see what we're calling our dashboard. So I've got two @signs that are currently loaded onto the app, and it's really simple to add an @sign. All you do is tap the plus icon, enter the @sign that you want to add in, and then you'll go through a one-step authentication process, and that's it. So let's have a look at some of the features of this app. So if I tap on my @sign, which is @Tina_SHE, I have 4 options. I can edit my profile, I can view my profile, I can delete my @sign, and I can back up my private keys. I'm going to go ahead and click edit. And then at the bottom of the screen, you can see I have 5 different sort of categories that I can work with in @persona. So the first category is my profile picture. So here I can upload a picture, I can remove my picture, I can edit a picture, I can take a new picture, got a lot of options. And then in the next section, we have our details. So we have some pre-populated fields, predefined fields, sorry, that you can enter. So your name, your phone number, your email, your pronoun, which I take very seriously. And then we have some custom content, which I'm going to come back to in a little bit. The next section is your location. So here, all you do is type in your location and hit search, and then it will pull up a map for where you are. And you can put in a nickname for your location if you don't want it to just show whatever it is that you typed. The next section is your social section. So here, we've made it really, really easy for you to connect your social media profiles to your @persona page. So you either put in your username or you put in the full URL to your social media page, and both those methods work to link your page to your profile. And then lastly, we have gamer tags. So for anybody who plays games online, here you can put in your gamer tags, and then people will be able to find you on your gaming platforms. So if I go back home and I hit the black eye icon, this will open up my profile. And then here you can see pretty much all the stuff that I've just shown you in the edit screens. You've got my name, my details, you've got links to my Instagram and my LinkedIn, and then you've got a whole lot of custom content here. And, you know, it's pretty flexible. We've got emojis in there. We've got a link to our Discord, got a YouTube video. You can put a whole lot of stuff in here. And one of the things I love most about this, I'm a really big fan of dark mode. So you can toggle this into dark mode and you can view it in dark mode. And you can also share your page in dark mode, which is really, really cool. All right, so I'm just gonna open up this page on my desktop real quick. And on my phone, I'm gonna go into the custom content section. So on the left, you can see we have this Finding Nemo GIF right here. So if we look on my phone where it says favorite quote, if I hit edit, this is the interface that allows us to add custom content. And at the moment, we have 5 different options for you. So you can add in text, you can add hyperlinks, numbers, images, and YouTube videos. But what makes this really cool is that for the text, you can also put in HTML. So that section that says with my favorite quote with the GIF, that's actually HTML. So I have 2 P tags, which are paragraph tags, and then I just have an iframe with the GIF embedded in it. And so with this particular page, I actually have this in my email signature, and I just use it as a way to allow people to know a little bit more about me after I've sent them an email. But you could use @persona pages for a number of things. So for example, let's just say I was a slightly more interested person and I have a group of friends who speak multiple languages. And so we've gotten together and we are teaching people how to speak these languages. So I've created a page for this business of ours that we have, and it's called NEA Learning. We have our company name, our little logo, we've got our contact details and the fact that we're online. And then in the page contents, we have all of the languages that we teach. So we teach the different Chinese dialects, we teach French, Japanese, Russian, Arabic, Hebrew, and Hindi. And then in each of these sections, we have a little hyperlink for people to register. So let's just say each one of my friends teaches one of these languages. And for some reason, my French friend is no longer able to take on new students, well, temporarily. So if this was like a regular sort of web page, you'd have to kind of go in, edit some code to get rid of that section, like this section right here. But then @persona makes it super easy. So if I go into the NEA H2U edit and I find that bit of custom content, so that's French, we have these little toggles on the right, and these control whether something is public or private. So I'm just going to go ahead and set that to private and hit save. And then if I refresh this page, our company is no longer taking registrations for French lessons. And then, so if my friend becomes available again, it's a super quick process. All I do is go back into the app, set that back to public, hit save, and we should now be able to accept French registrations again. Super simple. And then with the custom content, there's so much more you can do with it. Like the fact that we have those text fields really opens up the possibilities of what you can have on your ad persona page. So here is a page that we created for our gamer friend, and they have YouTube videos. They have high-res images in there, more images. They have scrolling content for their discount codes. They have links to their friends' Twitch channels. Here, there'd be some statistics on the games that they've been playing. And then we have an embedded calendar for when they'd be live on Twitch. So if you just clicked on that, you'd then be able to go straight to the live stream. And we also have a Spotify playlist that you can actually play within the page, which is pretty cool. And with regards to the social accounts, so we obviously have these links that allow you to just click and go directly to the page. But then we also have the social stream section where it actually shows you the social stream for that particular account, if you set it to public, obviously. And then in the gamer tag section, it shows you all of the gamer tags that people have put in. And we've made it super easy to share this. So someone would just come here, hit copy, and then go and paste it in whatever gaming platform that tag belongs to. And then last but not least, we're currently working on allowing people to follow each other. So very soon the app will allow you to follow at signs, and you could set that information to public and private as well. Samiraja will probably talk a little bit more about this in her code walkthrough. But yeah, that's pretty much my demo. I'm going to hand over to Samiraja to go through the code now.
Yes, and thanks, Tinashe. And that was very cool to see all of the different divergent data to be at one place. And so I'll just start sharing my screen. So yeah. So here, as Tinashe has demo, we can see different divergent data to be, we can give it through ad persona. So here is the most important feature that you have observed would be making some data to be private and publicly available, which means in the primarily, we have mentioned that ad platform will have no surveillance. So that means your data is under your control. So whenever you have made something to private or public, it is nothing but your all data is encrypted. So you can only see your data, what it is over there. So in order to convert it into the public and private, like how it actually works behind the screens. So an app developer has to take all the burden over there in order to start, for example, a new app. So maybe yes or maybe not. So let's just get our answers by going to the code walkthrough. So coming to this, so as you might all know, this is a pub YAML page. These are some of the dependencies that I've used over here. And for implementing some of the features, like for picking up the images that she has shown and profile pictures, and then Google Maps for picking up the locations. So these are some of the dependencies. And coming to the last three, these are the dependencies that have been developed by ad platform and are available in pub.dev. So what exactly do these things is, whenever any ad apps are being developed, so in order to make the life of an app developer very easy, these plugins will definitely come to save the time of an app developer in order to concentrate more on core functionalities. So while I was doing the ad persona, with the help of this ad onboarding Flutter, I can easily make ad sign to be paired with my device without any taking care of how to make the ad sign to be authenticated and how should it be handled. So I'll just get about how it is handled and how the plugin has been used. So let me go through that. So here in the code, I have just written a common service in order to use this in multiple places of ad persona. So here, this onboarding plugin, it will take some of the parameters from the app side, definitely a context, and the app color, so that it can make look and feel of your app will be forwarded towards to this plugin. And then it will have a function called onboard, which will return something called a map, which can be used further to perform some of the operations on it. And then it also returns an ad sign. And on error, like what happens if my ad sign hasn't onboarded or paired with my device? No problem. We are just throwing an error, and app developer has to handle like whatever they need to handle it. And then you can see in ad persona there are multiple ad signs supported. So if you want only a particular ad sign to be onboarded but not the all, yes, you can do that by just passing out the ad sign parameter. And then you can see the next screens and the first time hot screens, which will just take out the widget that you want to show after the completion of the onboarding plugin. And then this is the most important parameter called ad client preference, which means that whenever if we want something assigned to be done, so we just the SDK services will take some of the preferences from app developer side. So okay, this is fine, like we have just now completed integrating the onboarding, but how can we perform some of the operations like saving my data or making it public or private? Like how can we do that? Yes, there comes the package called ad client mobile. So this will act as a bridge between the ad apps and ad platform. So I'll just get about like how it has been integrated and how it is used. So yeah, so this is the SDK service, or which I can call, which acts as through which all of the operations related to the ad persona or any ad app can be forwarded to SDK. So here what I'm doing is, have already mentioned that in onboarding, we are trying to pass the preferences that an app developer wish to pass. For example, if we want something like to be stored, if we want our data to be stored in the local storages of phone, like how can we do it? We need to take the path of the supporting directories and we have to maintain all those stuff. But by using the SDK service, we don't need to, because we can just specify the paths and preferences and all the button will be taken care by SDK service. So here you can see, you can just need to pass the preference path that is required for different paths. And then here, this is something called namespace. As an ad sign is very unique identifier to an individual, and this namespace is a unique identifier an app. For example, ad persona has namespace of persona. So whenever I just create a key, for example, first name, last name, it will be succeeded with a namespace called dot persona. And then this is the sync strategy, which is something like, do you want to sync it immediately, or do you want to make it after completing all of my operations, and etc. And then, so as I have made up all my preferences and I'm ready to give it to the onboarding service. And so on onboarding completely, it will give me back the ad client service map. So yeah, so I have completed my first part, and then I have integrated my SDK service to give the ad client service preferences back. But now, so as you have seen in the demo, Tinashe has made some of the data to public to private and private to public. So if it is a public data, yes, you can just save it and the public can view the data. But what about the private data? Like it has to be encrypted, because in order to avoid the snooping and all. So should an app developer has to take out all the burden of encrypting the data and decrypting the data? Might not be, because SDK service will provide you the way of providing much more details, like whenever you want to save a key into the at platform, you can just specify the name of the key, and then you have to give some more details, like if you want to, whether you want to make it as a public or private data. You just need to just provide a single Boolean value called is private to a metadata of the key. It's just that simple. Just you need to provide a Boolean value. And for the images, and you want to make it a compress and you want to encrypt it to the images, so what you have to present, if it is a image. So here I've just provided as if my key is equals to the image, I'm just providing it as binary. So just a single line of code will works miracles. So it'll just give you whether it's a private and public. So this is about like how we can switch over between public and private very easily by using Atlan Mobile. And yes, I have given that metadata and everything. I have found my keys, but how can I store it into secondaries or service? Like, how can I do it? It's just simple. Like how we have methods for HTTP as get, put, delete. Similarly, we have those methods to be available from the SDK. We have methods like get, which will able to get the data of that key, and we can put some of the data along with the values, and we can delete any key at any time. So here, as we support as I've already mentioned earlier, at onboarding plugin will support multiple AdSense. So you need not to worry about tackling about how it can be made. As it is written in a map, we just have to get that particular client service instances, and then we need to pass that basing on this client service map of @sign, and we'll just get it, and we'll just call all the put, get, and delete methods. So similarly, there is something called get at keys. So you have done all the operations, but what if I want to get all the keys which I've saved from the app? So you can just something like get at keys, where you can get all the data by passing some of the parameters like regex, and then you can filter out whatever way you want it. And then apart from this, there are some of the sensitive details that will be stored in device storage. Let me say that as Flutter Secure Storage. So all those details like your key, your @signs will be stored here, and the sensitive information to encryption, to perform the encryption, will be stored in device. So that means your data is completely under your control. So in order to get those @signs and how to change the in the dashboard, you can see there are options like resetting your @sign or deleting your @sign. So these can be done by calling a message from there's something called Kitchen Manager, or you can do it even by using the @line for @sign service as well. So this is about like how I have made the integration part very easily without worrying about how to store my local storage and how to do the encryption part. And then there are some more packages that are available over here. Let me show you. So this is something called @backup key Flutter. So which in the demo, you can see there are 4 options to be available. One is like updating, deleting, and the other one is like backup your keys. Like whenever you have authenticated, you will get some keys to be backed by yourself. In case if you missed out to save it well, no problem. By using this @backup key Flutter, you can save it well. So it works as a polymorphic. For example, if you want to put it as a button, you can do it, or if you want to make it as an icon, then it is in your hands. So you just make it in. And there are some more packages that are available and that were developed by @platform. Those are called @chats, which makes us to integrate the chat applications to be very easy to use with @platforms. And there's something called @location, which will help us in tracking the live locations of an @sign with no surveillance. So this is the important point to be noted. And then we have also got @contacts, through which you can add group of contacts to Abbas. So yeah, so this is a brief discussion about how @persona works behind the screens. And yeah, I'm done.
Awesome. Thanks, Samaraja. Lots of great info there. So just rounding up our presentation, we will be, we will be doing a giveaway on our Discord server. We love welcoming people to our community. So we're inviting you all to head over to our Discord and introduce yourself with the hashtag FlutterSG. And sometime next week, we will be selecting some lucky winners who will get a $25 coupon towards a paid ad sign. Thanks a lot for listening to us. It's been fun. And if you have any questions that you want to ask, ask away. Otherwise, you can contact Samiraja and I via email.
Thanks a lot. I would again use my opportunity to ask first questions, if you don't mind. I was curious, how big is this persona app in terms of code base? Do you have
Sorry, could you just repeat it once?
do you have a rough idea how big is code base of persona app?
Okay, so it is not yet open source now. So it will be soon be open source because we are working on some of the features as Tinashe has mentioned about follows and following. So as soon as it gets completed, and it will be available in at Foundation GitHub links. So as you just go and copy the link, and yeah, the code, you can just play with the code base that that person.
So we have one question from Tony. Actually, why the app is called persona, and probably can you use it for multiple accounts?
Yes, I can say it is persona because it is your public profile, or I can say it is a collection of your data, which can be public or private. So yes, you can set up several personas in a different way, called having multiple ad signs and setting up the personas for each ad sign. So,
And just to add to that, we are currently looking at rebranding it because we realized that after Samiraja had built it, we realized that this goes beyond just people. So businesses can have persona pages, groups can have persona pages, you can have a persona page for a product, for an event. So we're currently kind of going through some different options for names at the moment.
Okay, thanks. And one more question about persona. You mentioned that technically you can integrate any HTML code, and this gives possibility to extend it. I was curious, would I be able to inject just plain JavaScript and try to steal tokens from users who open my persona page?
yeah, do you want to take over, Tinashe?
Short answer is no.
Okay. Okay.
You would be able to put in JavaScript, but not any JavaScript.
Okay, so there are some limitations. You're
Yes.
Okay. Nice to see that. And the question before last, our next talk will be about gaming. And do you think that if there are some use cases how you can use ad protocol to build games, game apps, or something like that?
So currently, by using ad platforms, we have different apps apart from that persona, where you can connect with the contacts and all. But we haven't even developed any game app. So having invited to have such an app, it would be really a learning experience for both ad platform side and for the app developers as well. I think it's good to start with, but I can, as they move on, we can learn both.
Okay, and maybe a little bit personal question for gamers. Tinashe, do you have PlayStation 5?
Not yet. So I live in Bermuda, and it takes a good 3 months for anything to get here. So I'm impatiently waiting.
Okay. Okay. Despite Singapore are not blocked by this Suez accident, I'm also waiting. Okay. Thanks a lot. It was nice to see at company again. If anyone would have any questions, feel free to drop. And then we are moving to the next one. Thanks, Tinashe. And
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
So, Shafraz, if you don't mind, please help to set up. We cannot hear you.
All right. I'm audible, right?
Yeah, everything is good.
Okay, awesome. So I'll be inviting Sakina now.
Yep, sure.
Okay, awesome. So I think we are going to try out a little bit of a different approach over here now. So let me get Sakina on board. And I'll be getting Sakina through Google Meet. Awesome. Let me quickly share my screen.
Shafraz, you are muted. Sorry.
Yeah,
Great.
so
Just let me know when you can hear me.
yeah, sure.
So we can hear you now. You are live.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks. Thanks. All right. So let's see the new approach, how it's going to look like. So I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah. Hey, Shafraz.
So we cannot
Gentlemen, you're
hear. So we were able to hear Sakina.
okay. Awesome. So I'm gonna, yeah. So yourself and myself, we both will jump on the backstage, and then we'll get Sakina to present.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Cool. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sounds great. Hello, everyone. Oh, wait. Just a second. Shafraz, I'm hearing myself over and over. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Perfect. Okay, so hello everyone. Hope you guys are doing well and hope you guys have been enjoying this event so far. So my name is Sakina, Abbas, and today I will be speaking all about game development in Flutter. So this talk is specifically dedicated to all my fellow gamers, game enthusiasts, all my fellow developers who enjoy playing games and who wish they could create games without having to learn proper game development engines like Unity or Unreal or others, right? So interestingly enough, this talk is also dedicated to all of you people who are not avid developers, who are just plain vanilla developers. This will actually really help you out with your concepts of set state and more specifically gestures, because the kind of games that I will be talking about in terms of developing them in Flutter, we will be looking at two different approaches. So just stick with me and you'll find out that there might be just hidden Easter eggs for you right here. So for those of you who don't really know me, hello, my name is Sakina Abbas. I am the co-founder and CEO of Reactory, which is a software house that I co-founded about 3 years ago, I believe. I initially started off as a native Android developer, but currently I'm leading the DevOps and Flutter development here at Reactory. I'm also a core member of Flutter Project, like a cult of Flutter developers here in our city in Pakistan. I'm also a Women in Tech speaker for Google Developer Space Singapore. So before we actually get into the very, very technical discussions of developing games, let me just ask you a very simple question. What makes a great mobile game? So there are multiple aspects, and in fact, there are multiple factors that contribute in making a mobile game really good. Some of them are graphics, gameplay, story, performance, size, and finally, one that keeps you hooked. But the most important of these are performance and size, because you can still control the story because you are the one who's going to be creating it. You are in full control of the gameplay as a developer. Even you're kind of in control of the graphics, like what kind of game do you want? Do you want to give it a retro feel? Do you want to give it a more like a modern feel, like Angry Birds perhaps? What kind of graphics do you want to give your game? So that's also controllable by you. But what's kind of difficult is the performance, like especially when we're talking about creating games for mobiles. Performance and size are two big factors that contribute to a game's success, because we're talking about mobile phones here. People have limited space here. They don't want to be using apps that if they just use for like 10 minutes, their phone gets too overheated too quickly, right? So all of these come under performance and obviously the size. They don't want to hog, you don't want your app to be hogging all of the memory that their phone has, right? So you have to be very careful about creating very optimal games in terms of their performance and size when you're developing games for the mobile platform. So what does all of that mean? Could a mobile app developer this luxury can this luxury be only afforded by people who are core game developers and not just mobile app developers? Well, the good news is that even as a mobile developer, you can create games, you can create mobile games, and even better news is that Flutter makes it easier, faster, and smoother. Now, initially when I was talking about the kind of games that I'll be discussing over here, Flutter games can actually technically be categorized as games with proper with third-party libraries to handle physics and other game-related stuff. And then we have those games which you can without even using any third-party packages. So just the normal Flutter concepts, just the normal Dart code that you have been learning so far, right? Like just with the use of set state and just with the use of gestures, you can actually create a good mobile game. So what do we have? What is the actual difference between games that are using third-party packages, and what's the difference between games that are not using third-party packages? So if you're looking at creating a game strictly from the plain old vanilla concepts of Dart and Flutter, what will you need to do? You will need to write your own custom code for the UI, for their animations, for the characters, for the game logic. You will have to write custom code for practically everything, including gravity if your game has that, including collisions if your game has that, and so on and so forth, right? Now, When we're looking at games for which you're using a third-party package, let's say Flame, which we will be discussing later on in this discussion, you actually already have pre-packaged code that supports, or that rather makes it easier for you to create and use sprites, animations, physics, including gravity, collisions, speed, game loops, etc. Right? So there's just all that pre-packaged code is there. You just really have to go through the documentation and just know how to use that, right? Now, what do the two kinds of games have in common? The gameplay, the graphics, the logic, the performance, and the size. So naturally speaking, in order to handle the gameplay, you will have to write custom code in a game that you're creating without a third-party package. But with a game that you're creating using a third-party package like Flame, for rather to handle all the physics attributes of your game, you already have pre-packaged code for that, right? So let's first look at games without quote-unquote physics. Why quote-unquote? Because we're actually mimicking that through our own custom code. So this is actually one of the very first games that I made a long time ago. As you can see, it's not as fancy in terms of physics, quote unquote, but what this game essentially did was that so it had multiple game rules. So for instance, pop the reds or pop the blues, or pop all the red bubbles that are multiples of 4, right? So these are the kind of rules that were being generated on the fly. So the rule generation was dynamic, the level management was dynamic, the difficulty management was dynamic. The game has infinite levels. There was custom logic for leveling up or playing again, and it was all 100% offline. But the best part about this was that I did not use any out-of-the-box package, okay? Even for handling the state, I used the plain old vanilla set state because I just wanted to see the extent to which I could leverage Flutter for creating games, and it worked pretty fine. But today, the game that we'll actually be looking at is this game. If you people are aware of Neon Cat, the famous meme, then you know what this game is about. So essentially, we have this Neon Cat. For simplicity's sake, I'll just call it Cat for all my friends who are not aware of the Neon Cat meme. So we have this cat who really likes to eat donuts, right? So this is a game with kind of an infinite game loop, so it doesn't really condition, like you have to score at least 10 under 5 seconds, then that means you level up, otherwise it's game over. But right now it doesn't have that for simplicity's sake, and essentially you just have to collect as many donuts as you possibly can while moving up or down. Okay, so what essentially do you need in order to create this game without any third-party packages? You will obviously need a UI code for the game screen, which is this entire screen that you see over here. You will need your custom UI code for the characters and the obstacles. In fact, I wouldn't even call it obstacles, I'd call it collectibles, right? So we have custom code for the cat, we have custom code for the donuts, we have custom code for the animations, so like handling as per the gestures, then we have gesture detectors, and then we have custom code for the game logic plus state management, which was actually the most tricky part of this game. So let's check the code. All right, so we have this code over here. All right, let me just quickly give you a quick walkthrough of the files that we currently have. So under my lib folder, I have a file called cat, collectible game screen, and main.dart. Main.dart does nothing except it just renders the game screen that we have over here. Let's come to this at the end. Let's just go simple first. So we have a cat widget, and then we have a collectible widget. The collectible widget obviously refers to the donut, where we just have a fixed container of a fixed width and height. And for the child, we have this PNG donut image so that it gives that nice look. And as for the cat, we also same fixed container with fixed width, and we have this PNG neon cat image so that it gives this nice cattish look. All right. Now, the main part and the juiciest part is obviously the game screen. So we have this stateful widget called game screen, and over here you can see I have a couple of variables initialized by default. So, all right, so over here, the concepts that I will be introducing to you are about gestures, timers, and access management, right? So before we actually get into the nitty-gritties of this code, I want you to understand how the access system works in Flutter. So work with x-axis and y-axis. Usually x-axis is positive on the right side and negative on the left side. It's the same thing here in Flutter. And usually the y-axis is positive on the upper side and it's negative on the bottom side, right? But in Flutter, it's actually flipped. So if I'm talking about y-axis, say minus 0.2, I actually mean that I'm talking about the upper region. If I'm talking about y-axis 0.2, like positive 0.2, I'm talking about the lower region, right? So it's just the y-axis that's flipped in Flutter. So I have a couple of variables here that are initialized. By default, the x-axis and the y-axis of the cat are 0 and 0. Then I have 6 variables for candy. So like 2 access values for each of the candy. As you can see, we at the moment, we only have 3. It's like in a specific loop, you can see 3 donuts being rendered on the screen, okay? So in order to handle them and their axis, we have candy 1 x-axis as 1, candy 1 y-axis as 0.5, and same for candy 2 and candy 3. We have the default score as 0 for when the game starts. We have a couple of flags like game started, and another couple of flags for top and bottom. All right, note that for the time being, this game is designed for vertical gestures only and not horizontal gestures, okay, for simplicity's sake. So what you can see here is that we have our normal scaffold, right? Nothing unusual. We have our scaffold. Then inside our scaffold, the body, the entire body is actually wrapped inside. Then on the gesture detector, I have actually provided some method to this on vertical dragon. Now, what exactly is on vertical dragon? So when we're working with gesture detectors, you are already familiar with on tap or on long press or like similar methods, right? On vertical dragon works similar to when you just swipe up or swipe down on your screen. When you do that, this thing is triggered, and it's triggered just on one frame, okay? So it's not triggered every time you drag your finger across the screen vertically, all right? If you just do it swipe for as long as you hold your finger on the screen, this method will just be triggered once. So that's the beauty of it. So over here we have that if the game has already started, which it currently has not, as the default value is false, and it gives us drag in details. What does the drag in details give us? It actually gives some properties that we can access in order to determine whether the swipe was in the upper region or the lower region, as it swipe up or swipe down. So if the primary velocity is less than 0, it actually means that you have to go up because the swipe's direction was in the upper region, like from bottom to top, and this one gets rendered, and this one gets triggered when you swiped from top to bottom, okay? So that's indicated by primary velocity is greater than 0, okay? And obviously, if the game has not started, then obviously this method is null. We don't need to do anything. Then we also have the on tap method. This is just in order to start the game actually. So by default, we will only be looking at tap to play, which you just briefly saw over here. And naturally, when you tap on that, the game will be started, and you can just play with the game, right? So how is that working? If game started is true, then obviously we don't need to do anything. Where we're actually following in this game loop that we currently have. But if game has not yet started, which is our condition right now, we actually call this start game method. So, okay, before I actually get into these methods and their details, let me just give you guys a quick walkthrough of what our UI looks like. So you already saw the cat widget and the collectible widget. Now what we currently have is this child. So inside our gesture detector, other than these two methods that we have this column. The column has a stack inside it as a child, and in that we have a couple of widgets, right? We have 3 animated containers for our collectibles, and we have 1 animated container for our cat widget. Okay, so as you can see over here, each of our animated container, it contains a child. So here is our cat, here is our collectible 1, collectible 2, and collectible 3, which is candy 1, candy 2, candy 3 in our case. I have also defined the alignment attribute over here. So what is exactly the alignment? The alignment is being controlled by the x-axis and the y-axis values that we have. And then obviously we have the duration for the animations. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then after that, we have, and this is our stack. This is still part of the stack. So we have that if the game has already started, it should not show anything, but if the game has not yet started, it should show this tap to play text at the top-ish, center-ish, just to indicate that you need to tap in order to start playing the game. And then below that, we have this text which just shows the current score, which is actually the number of collectibles that you have collided with as of yet, right? Now let's look at okay, let's start simple. Let's look at the go up method first. So what does go up do? It does nothing. It just uses a set state method to alter our flags. So naturally, when we're going up, that means top is true and bottom is false. This is just to control the movements of our cat, right? Similarly, we have the go down method, which does top false and bottom pretty straightforward. And then the start game is actually where the real magic happens. So we have the start game here, which is being controlled when as soon as you tap the screen on which the on tap method is triggered. So what it does is that the first thing, obviously, it does game started is equal to true. And then the next thing that we have is we have a timer, which is triggered every 60 milliseconds. So what exactly are we doing over here? The first thing is obviously for every 60 milliseconds, the candies are moving. Okay, so the candies are just moving in the x-axis, not vertically. They're just moving horizontally. So because they're starting off from the right part of our screen, we're actually decrementing it by 0.05. So for the loop that lasts for 60 milliseconds, it decrements by minus 0.05. So you see this very smooth linear animation over here. That's what's happening over here. Then the next thing that we have is we have 2 checks for when the cat's y-axis has reached either minus 0.9 or plus 0.9. And naturally, when we're talking about minus 0.9, we're talking about top, as in the movement was in the top direction. And this block here, right here, it means that if the cat's y-axis is less than 0.9, and if bottom is true, that means that when the user had swiped up, so swiped up meant top and minus 0.9. So minus 0.9 would be somewhere over here, and 0.9 would be somewhere over here near the bottom of the screen. All right. So why do we have these checks? We have these checks in order to prevent our cat widget from going beyond the frame, beyond the available screen that we have. Okay, that's why we have these checks, so that if the cat has reached right at the top of the screen, and then when the user presses swipe up again, then nothing happens. It doesn't go beyond that. Okay, so that's all that's happening here. And then we have similar thing we have here for each of our candies. So if the candies x-axis is less than -2, we will be incrementing it by 3.5. So what it means is that if the candies have crossed this region, they have gone out of the screen towards the left side, we increment their x-axis by a value so that they are re-rendered from here. So what it actually means is that naturally, if you're someone who wouldn't be who wouldn't have that much knowledge of the code, you would be assuming that we have that this candy, it has passed, and then another candy is coming over here. But what's really happening is that the same candies are appearing over and over and over inside a loop. All right. Now, the last thing that we have is obviously check collision. So what exactly is check collision? Check collision is a separate method that I have created in order to determine that when the cat comes in very close proximity of a donut, then our score should be incremented. So as you can see, it ate 1 here. We got a score of 2. It ate 1 there, 3. It ate another 1, 4. And so on and so forth, right? So that's what we're doing. Now, how are we handling this? We are handling this based on proximity, right? As in how close is the cat to a specific donut, right? So if the candies x-axis is less than 0.2, but it's also greater than -2, that means that the candies region is kind of like over here in the center somewhere. Right, so that's the first thing that we're checking, because our cat widget is in the center, so we need to align our donuts in the central region to check for collisions, right? So that's the first thing. Are they in the center of the screen? If they are in the center of the screen, then we're checking cat's y-axis minus the candy's y-axis, or is the difference between the two y-axis less than 0.1 and greater than or equal to 0. So the proximity threshold that we've set here is 0 to 0.1, right? Is matched return, and we're actually returning some integers over here, and these integers are based on which candy are we looking at. So for candy 2, we're returning 2. For candy 1, we're returning 1, and 3, we're returning 3. Now, we actually need to return these values so that we can handle that which specific candy, or rather which specific donut did the cat eat. We need to do that because, as you can see over here, every time a cat collides with a donut, that donut vanishes, right? So see that? It vanishes. So in order to handle that, we need to know which donut exactly did the cat collide with, all right? Now, over here, we're checking for collision. So naturally, if we have case 1 for candy 1, if the cat collided with the candy 1, then what we're doing is that we're just doing plus equal to 2, so that the candy 1 is essentially rendered out of the screen, which is caught in our in over here. So Right. Okay, no, right. So what this is actually doing is that we're just doing plus equal to 2. And what this does is that it makes the candy go out of the screen so that it's somewhere over here. And then based on our loop, the timer that we've set, it gets re-rendered over here. So what it looks like to the physical eye is that the candy has vanished because it has been eaten up. But what is actually happening behind the scene is that we're just incrementing the score, and the candy is just going out of the frame somewhere over here, so that when the timer reruns, it looks like it's coming over here again. It's being re-rendered again, right? So that's what we're doing for each of the candies, and we're just incrementing the score. So that's literally pretty much it. Now, I understand that was a lot of math to digest and consume, but that is the thing with creating games, be it in any language that you're creating, all right? Even when you're working with out of the box packages that already provide you pre-packaged code to handle physics, you still need to delve into the mathematics of them as to what criteria are you setting for your game loop and stuff like that, right? So obviously you need good at math in order to play. All right. So this is the emulator. The vertical gestures don't exactly work as smooth with a mouse here, but I'll still try to show you what it looks like. But if you were to actually run this game on your physical device, then it runs like freaking smooth sailing, right? So as you can see, we have this tap to play text over here, and we have 0 over here, and we have these donuts here, and we have our cat here. So I tap click to play, and it's just eating the donuts. I do up, it goes up. I do down, it goes down. And if it comes into close proximity with any of the donuts, and the mouse is not working. Yep, it works. Okay. So this is how it's actually working. As soon as it comes into close proximity within of a donut within 0.1 values of the x-axis, it will eat it, right? And the other thing that you can also see is that even when we go up or down, our cat stays inside our screen, so it doesn't end up going up and it doesn't end up going really down, right? So those are the checks. So this is actually being controlled through these checks right here, right? Okay, now let me talk about creating a game with a third-party package called Flame. So this is a game that I created. I don't have this in my system right now, so we'll be looking at the code snippets that I've included over here. It was a long time ago that I created this game. So what this game actually does is that if you remember the very old space shooter games, what they would do is that you would have these obstacles flying from the sky, and you would have to shoot them before they end up getting to you, which is like the bottom of the screen. So this is what I did. So we have these Pokeballs, and we're shooting these thunderbolts of Pikachu. If you're an avid Pokemon fan, you already know that Pikachu hates being captured in a Pokeball. So this is actually the Pokeballs that you hit, you get that score incremented over here. We also have a game over loop coded here. So even if one Pokeball hits to the bottom of the screen, we'll consider it game over, and the score will be what you currently have here. The other thing that you would notice is that the Pokeballs here are being rendered in different dynamics. Okay, so we'll look into that, how we're actually doing that, right? So I created this game using Flame, which is a game engine for Flutter. It's a third-party package. You can find it on pub.dev, and it's a pretty cool library. It provides pre-packaged code for images, sprites, animations, even audio. User interactions are pretty easy here, and physics and gravity, it's all pretty, the collisions, everything's pretty easy and straightforward with Flame. So in order to be able to use Flame, you need to understand a couple of terminologies. So in Flame, we have the base game. Base game is an abstract class that you have to create. What it does is that it essentially provides two methods. One is the render method, and the other is the update method. What the render method is responsible, it's responsible for drawing your components on the canvas, so all of your sprites. It's responsible for rendering them and in fact drawing them on your screen. And the update method takes it takes a value of time And what this is responsible is, it's responsible for updating your game's state overall based on the time that it receives. So this is a snippet, or rather a snapshot, of what the update method inside our base game class looks like. As you can see, we're getting this time t, and what we're doing is that our game loop is basically based on 2.5 seconds. So this thing that you saw here, this is actually going to last 2.5 seconds, and after every 2.5 seconds, we're gonna refresh the screen in terms of, we'll have new Pokeballs falling from the top. All right. So I have restricted to 2.5 seconds. So if the game is not over and creation timer is greater than or equal to 2.5, then we're resetting our creation timer to 0 so that we can re-render everything again. The next thing that we have here is I have 2 blocks of code for rendering the Pokeballs. So we have 40% chances that the Pokeballs that we're getting, they're being rendered in a particular pattern, which is multiple Pokeballs at a single time. So over here we had 1, another we had 1, we also have 1 Pokeball here, but now we have like 5 Pokeballs, and then again we have 1, and we have 3, and so on and so forth. So this is actually, we have 40% chance that we'll have multiple Pokeballs falling together. So I have that, and then we have a 60% chance that at a single point in time we'll only be getting 1 Pokeball. All right. So what we have over here is that in order to create, or rather in order to draw a Pokeball, we have this Pokeball widget, which is a sprite widget. And what we provide is that we provided some dimensions, some size, and some multiple attributes that we'll be looking at when we look at this widget specifically. Okay, so we provide it these things, and we add it to the list of Pokeballs that we're maintaining. And what this does is that it renders it on the screen. Okay, which is being done by add Pokeball, which is a method. To that you pass your Pokeball, and it basically essentially renders that on your canvas. Then we have the sprite component. So sprite component is a class which allows you to create your custom sprites, such as the Thunderbolt sprite or the Pokeball sprite. Okay, so it has a couple of methods. It has the update method, which is similar to what we saw in the base game, that it updates the status of your sprite based on the time. Then we have a method called destroy, which informs the base game that this particular sprite has been marked for destruction in the next, or sorry, in the current it's just called resized, and when a new component is added via the add method, which is this method that we saw over here. So how exactly do you create a sprite component? There are certain values that you need to pass it, such as the dimensions, the dimensions of the screen, the position, the specific position that this Pokeball should be in, and its Y position. Why are we providing Y position separately? Because as you can see, our Pokeballs are only being updated vertically and not horizontally. Right, and then naturally we have we provide what kind of sprite do you even need. So we're using the square sprite over here, and we're passing our image over here, and we're passing the size, the Pokeball size over here. All right, then these are the update and the destroy methods of our sprite. So on the update method, what we have is that if the game is over, then naturally the Y attribute should be 0, but if not, it should be T times Pokeball speed, which is actually the formula for calculating distance. All right, so what should be the Y value of your Pokeball? It should be time times speed times time, right? Okay. Then we have the destroy method. What it does is that if explode is true, which is a flag that we're controlling in order to check for collisions between the Pokeball and the Thunderbolt. If it's true, then return true. That is that this specific Pokeball has been marked for destruction. Otherwise, another thing that we're checking is that is null, or if max y is null, then return false. What this means, what this implies is that the Pokeball is still kind of somewhere in the middle of the screen. It hasn't yet reached the bottom, nor has it been collided with the Thunderbolt. And then the last case is where we're checking for when the Pokeball has hit the bottom of the screen, which is being controlled by max y plus Pokeball size, half of the Pokeball size. So what this means is that the max y actually means the maximum y axis that it can cover, right? And why are we doing half? Because if the Pokeball has, if just half of the Pokeball has crossed this bottom part, then we will consider it to be marked for destruction. As you just saw, as soon as the Pokeball, half of the Pokeball crossed the screen, then it just flashed game over, right? So it's just part of the logic that we're doing. And naturally, this is what it means. And if it's true, then game over should be true and we're returning true. Otherwise, we're not doing anything. Now, we have, I think this is the last thing. Yeah, it's the animation component. So what the animation component is responsible, it's kind of responsible for collisions and for showing a brief animation for when the collision happens. So we have a separate class dedicated to explosion. Let me quickly show you what it looks like. So as you can see that when you hit a Pokeball with this Thunderbolt, you get this cyclic animation, right? It's yellow in color and you get this nice cyclic animation right there, okay? So this is a separate component over here in our project. So what animation component actually is, it uses an instance of the animation class to run a single cyclic animation. You can provide them your custom width, your custom height, like how big should it be, and how long should the animation last, and what is the step time. There are multiple things that you can define. It takes a sprite or a sprite list as an input. So if your, for instance, animation starts off as something that looks like A and then it transforms into something that looks like B. So for instance, if you think about let's say an explosion. So an explosion looks different at the start and then it gradually diminishes over time, right? So if you wanted to mimic something like an explosion in the terms of a blast happening or something like that, then you would have to provide it a list of sprites to take care of that, right? But for now, we're just dealing with it's doing is that it's taking the Pokeball size, because naturally we want the animation to be equivalent to the size of our Pokeball, and the step time we have just defined it to time upon 7. That this is the duration during which this animation should last. And on destroy is actually if the animation is on its last frame, then the animation should be destroyed. So it shouldn't be happening on and on and on and on, right? So that's what it's all doing. And naturally, the last thing that we're doing is that we're passing it a single PNG file, okay? And you can see here that we have this sequence. It provides multiple different types of animation. Over here, I'm using super dot sequenced, okay? So it's going on in a kind of linear format, something like that, okay? So that kind of brings us to the end of today's session. Now, you might be asking me why Flutter at all for developing games, specifically if you're a game enthusiast, you're an avid gamer, or you've heard of Unity or Unreal, or you've even worked with them before. You might be asking, if we already have these engines out there, why at all should we resort to Flutter to create games? Well, first of all, it provides simple and fast state management. You don't really need to learn anything outside of the box if you're already familiar with the vanilla state management techniques of Flutter. Flutter is essentially a blank canvas, so that's a high room for customization. Flutter creates a lightweight games, and they're performant by default because the Flutter framework, it's rendered on the Skia graphic engine, which is performant and lightweight by default. So you don't really have to worry about all of these nitty-gritties as a developer. Then naturally, it's quite quick to create any game in Flutter, as we just saw with the Neon Cat example. All of everything was basically happening in one single file, and let me tell you how long it even took me to create this game. So I created this game back in December, and I literally created it in like 2 hours. It just took me 1.5 hours to come up with the game logic and the combination of physics and collisions and timer and everything. That's it. So it just literally practically took me 2.5 hours to create that Neon Cat game, right? So it's quite quick to create, and it's quite developer friendly as well, because as you just saw with the Neon Cat example, I did nothing different, nothing that you don't already know. So that's pretty cool. And the last pro is actually you don't really need to learn complex engines to build a simple game. And this is specifically for those people who haven't even used Unity or Unreal before. I have used it before, but obviously I didn't commit myself to it. So I kind of got out of the practice of how we create games in Unity. But for people who are just developers who just want to try something creative, maybe create a simple game, put it out on the Play Store and the App Store, and if you're already a Flutter developer, then you don't really need to do much. You just need to use your original concepts and add in a bit of math, and yeah, you're good to go. So these are my social links. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can hit me up there if you have absolutely any questions. And yeah, in fact, if you have any questions right now, feel free to let me know.
Thanks, Sakina. Could you hear me?
I'm sorry, what?
Could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I have a few questions. First of all, thanks for presentation. Finally, we can hear each other. And the first question is, like you mentioned that you spent about 2 hours, 3 hours to build these games. It looks like you have like pretty decent experience to do that. So what would be the biggest difference in your opinion between writing a regular app versus writing a game?
Okay, so if I got the question right, are you asking me about standard Flutter code and between writing a code for a game? Is that what your question is?
Sorry, Shafraz, I think it doesn't work well. We hear a lot of echoes.
Okay, let me check. Sakina, do you hear us now? No. All right.
So, would we be able to ask, or Sakina, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was able to hear you guys before as well.
Oh yeah, excellent. Then let me repeat the question, and please start from the beginning because we had echoes. So what is the biggest difference between writing an app and writing a game?
Okay, so naturally when you're creating a game in Flutter, you obviously need to pay close attention to math. It's not something that you might be able to find very easily on let's say, GitHub or Stack Overflow answers. If you get stuck somewhere, you would probably have to do a little bit of dry run and do a little bit of math equations on a notepad, because you really need to be cautious about math. But what really helps you is that, so let's say when I was creating that Neon Cat game, I had no clue how to model that vertical gesture thingy, because coming from the plane of vanilla Flutter concepts, I was aware of gesture detector, I was aware of on tap, on long press, and on the different kinds of methods that it exposes us with, but I didn't know what exactly, or rather how we handle vertical gestures or horizontal gestures. So after doing a little bit of digging on Stack Overflow, I was able to find that, okay, so this is the method which gets triggered when you just do a swipe, whether it doesn't matter how long that swipe lasts based on your on the touch of your finger between, or on the touch of your finger with the screen. It doesn't matter how many frames it takes, it just gets triggered once, right? So naturally, this is what I basically found across Stack Overflow and Git. Other than that, I think when you're creating a game in Flutter, the concepts that you really need to have are that state management, UI, just a little bit of UI, not that fancy, animations, access, math. These are kind of the essentials that you need to have at least average to advanced grip on, because obviously that's what you need in order to create games. But for standard app development, you don't really need to have that strong knowledge of math. And for animations, you already have many of the tutorials available. But if you're looking to create a very custom game of yours with very custom animations that are in your head, then you obviously need to do a bit of digging, like how can you achieve that using standard Flutter widgets.
All right. Thanks. And one more question from me. How about iOS? So there is a well-known, very famous problem with animation in iOS. Have you tried this? How does it impact game style application?
I'm sorry, have I tried what?
There is a problem with iOS animations, so that it's pretty laggy for the first run. And did you meet it? Did you see this problem? And if yes, have you tried to solve it? Because, like in games, it might be very, very critical.
I am able to hear you. Kind of understand what you're trying to say.
Could you please repeat? Last 5 seconds disappeared.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat the question? I'm unable to understand what you're trying to ask here.
Have you heard about problem with iOS animations?
Oh, right, okay.
But for games,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so no, I don't think so. That would be a very big of an issue over here, because if you're just using the standard Flutter widgets, or even if you're not working with, if you're not resorting to custom code for everything, that is, if you're using third-party packages such as Flame in order to handle all of this, then they already do a pretty good job at handling animations. And the best part is that while I was doing a bit of research, I also came across a plugin that somebody had created, which converts your your Unity, the sprites or the design in Unity to Flutter code. So obviously, naturally, when you're working with Unity or Unreal, you're working with pretty high resolution animations and screen rendering, right? So naturally, I don't think that very high resolution animations would be a problem over here, because whenever you're working with Flutter, be it your own custom code, whether you're working with Flame or whether you're working with the plugin that translates your Unity stuff into Flutter stuff, then during all of this translation, it already optimizes much of your graphics. So even if it's really high resolution, it would be toned down in a way that it still looks pretty much the same to the naked eye, but on the back end, it has been optimized for standard mobile games, so that it doesn't really make the game unresponsive. It makes it as lean, as lightweight, and as seamless to play with. So yeah, I think a nice way to answer this would be that Flutter does its own kind of magic, in the sense that even if you provided really bad, in fact, not really bad, it's like really high graphic intensive sprites or animations, then it would tone it down in order to make it as performant as possible. So you as a developer don't have to worry about optimizations like that.
Okay. Thanks for your presentation. Thanks for your answers. Unfortunately, your presentation, there were a lot of details, and I deleted a lot of my questions. So thanks for that. Yeah, and I believe that's all for us for today. I want to thank all our speakers for joining and sharing their topics. It was interesting, and especially thanks Shafraz for supporting us. And you're still muted, so it's fine. But anyway, so thanks to you. Thanks for Google Developer Space. See you next time. Bye.